Hello friends, we will discuss about the first chapter of medieval Indian history of NCRT class 11th of Satish Chandra. We will discuss about the India and the world. First of all, we will discuss about the introductory part of India and the world. So, many important changes took place in Europe and Asia after the 8th century. These changes not only altered the relationship between Europe and Asia but but had also a far reaching effect on the thinking and pattern of life of the people. These developments had an indirect effect on India as uh, since India had a large trade with the old Roman Empire. Yes, I repeat, these developments had an indirect effect on India, not direct effect, indirect. As well, since India had a large trade with the old Roman Empire. We have to consider in our mind that India had a large trade with the old Roman Empire. First of all, we will discuss about the first part of Europe in this chapter. In this chapter, we have 4 points to discuss. First one is about Europe, second one is about the growth of feudalism, and third one is the Arab world, and the fourth one is East and Southeast Asia. Okay, so first one is Europe. In Europe, the mighty Roman Empire had broken into two by the third quarter of 6th century. So, we can say third quarter of 6th century is around 550 to 575. The western part, with its capital at Rome, had been overwhelmed by the slave and Germanic tribesmen coming from the side of Russia and Germany. These tribes come in many ways and indulged in a great deal of ravaging and plundering in the territories of old Roman Empire. But in course of time, these tribes uh, scurried down in different parts of Europe. In different parts of Europe, profoundly changing the character of old population as well as the languages and pattern of governments. The foundations of many of the modern European nations were laid during this period. As a result of the commingling of these tribesmen with the local population, the eastern part of the old Roman Empire had its capital at Constantinople. Again, I repeat, Constantinople is the capital of eastern part of old Roman Empire. It included most of the Eastern Europe as well as modern Turkey, Syria, and North Africa. This empire, which was called the Byzantine Empire, continued many of the traditions of the Roman Empire, such as a strong monarchy and a highly centralized administration. However, in brief and ritual, it had many differences with the Catholic Church in the West. which had its headquarters at Rome. The church in the east was called the Greek Orthodox Church. Again, I repeat, the church in the east was called the Greek Orthodox Church. It was due to its efforts and efforts of Byzantine rulers that Russia was converted to Christianity. Modern Turkey and Syria, which were a part of the Byzantine Empire, also followed the Greek Orthodox Church. The Byzantine Empire was a large and flourishing empire which continued to trade with Asia after the collapse of Roman Empire in the West. Again, I repeat, the Byzantine Empire was a large and flourishing empire which continued to trade with Asia after the collapse of Roman Empire in the West. It created traditions of government and culture, many of which were later absorbed by the Arabs when they overrun Syria and Egypt. It also acted as a bridge between the Greco-Roman civilization and the Arab world, and later helped in the revival of Greek learning in the West. It disappeared finally in the middle of 15th century when Constantinople fell to the Turks. So, for several centuries after collapse of the Roman Empire in the West, the cities virtually disappeared in Western Europe, and foreign and inland trade received a severe setback. This period in Western Europe is called by historians the Dark Age. Again, I repeat, for several centuries after the collapse of Roman Empire in the West, the cities virtually disappeared in Western Europe, and foreign and inland trade received a severe setback. So, inland trade receives severe setback, and that is why this period in Western Europe is called by historian the Dark Age. However, from the 10th century onwards, trade and with its city life began to revive between the 12th and the 14th century. Western Europe was again able to attain a high level of prosperity. A notable feature of the period was the growth of science and technology, growth of towns, and the establishment of universities in a number of cities um, such as Padua and Milan in Italy. The universities played an important part in the growth of new learnings and new ideas, which were gradually to lead to the Renaissance and the rise of New Europe. So, with this, the first part is over, and we'll discuss now the second part of this chapter is growth of feudalism. So, the second part, growth of feudalism. A new type of society and a new system of government rose in Western Europe following the breakup of Roman Empire. The new order that gradually emerged is called feudalism. Again, I repeat, the new order that gradually emerged is called feudalism. This is derived from the Latin word feudum, which is translated into English as fief. Yes, this is derived from the Latin word feudum, which is translated into English as fief. Fief means jagir or samant sampatti. In this society, the most powerful elements were the chief, who uh, with their military following dominated large tracts of land or large areas of land, and also played an important part in government. Again I repeat, in this society the most powerful elements were the chiefs, who with their military following dominated large tracts of land and also played an important part in government. The king was just like one of the more powerful feudal chief. In course of time, the monarchy becomes stronger and an attempt was made to limit the power of the chief. So, monarchy becomes stronger and an attempt was made to limit the power of the chief. One method of doing so was that the king swore the chief. The king swore the chief to an oath of loyalty to him as his vassals, and in return recognized the tract of land dominated by the chiefs as their fiefs. Again I repeat, one method of doing so was that the king swore the chief, मतलब king जो था वो चीफ को क्या करवाता था, ओथ दिलाता था लॉयल्टी की, और उसको एरिया अलॉट करता था अब उसकी जागीर के लिए कि इतने जागीर पे आप डोमिनेट कर सकते हो. The chiefs in return could appoint sub chief as vassal. And in return recognize the tract of land. Again I repeat, sorry, sub chiefs as vassal और मतलब उसके अधीन and allot a tract out of their fief to them. मीन्स जो चीफ को मिलता था राजा से, और राजा जो करता था वो सब चीफ मतलब वेजल को अपने अधीन जो रहता था उसको उसमें से डिवाइड कर देता था. द किंग कुड इन थ्योरी रिज्यूम द फीफ ऑफ अ डिसलॉयल वेसल. किंग क्या कर सकता था, डिसलॉयल्टी को चेक कर सकता था, बट इन प्रैक्टिस दिस वॉज रेयरली डन, मतलब राजा मुश्किल से ही ये करता था. दस इन द फ्यूडल सिस्टम गवर्नमेंट वॉज डोमिनेटेड बाय अ लैंडेड एरिस्टोक्रेसी. The aristocracy was hereditary and tried its best not to admit outsiders to its fold. But it was never a completely closed aristocracy. The aristocracy was hereditary and tried its best not to admit outsider to its fold, but it was never a completely closed aristocracy. This was the feudal system in its broadest outline. There are many similarities between this system and the system of government and society evolved by the Turks in Central Asia and by the Rajputs in India. As the system developed, it assumed various forms of different countries due to differences in conditions and traditions. Yes, I repeat, as the system developed, in it assumed various forms in different countries due to differences in conditions and traditions, because there are so many differences in culture, tradition and condition. Like we have different kinds of amenities, but it may be that in some other parts they are not even they can enjoy the normal amenities. In Europe, the feudal system is associated with two other features. In Europe, a feudal system is associated with two other features. First is the system of serfdom. Serfdom. A serf was a peasant who worked on the land but could not change his profession or migrate to other area or marry without the permissions of his lord or master. Again, I repeat, the first is the system of serfdom. A serf was a peasant who worked on the land but could not change his profession or migrate to any other areas or marry without permission of his lord or master. Associated with this was the system of the manor. The manor was the house or castle where the lord lived. In many of the European countries, large tracts of land were owned by the lords of these manors. So manor is a house, we can say, was the house. The manor was the house or castle where the lord lived, जहाँ पे राजा रहता था. In many of the European countries, large tracts of land were owned by the lords for these manors. बहुत बड़े बड़े एरियाज जो थे लॉर्ड्स ने अपने कब्जे में कर रखे थे, जहाँ पे वो उनका घर बनता था. A part of the land was cultivated by the lord directly with the help of serfs, who had to divide their time between cultivating their own fields and the field of their master. Since the land belonged theoretically to the lord, the serf had to pay him other dues in cash and kind. Again, I repeat, since the land belonged theoretically to the lord, the serf had to pay him other dues in cash and kind. The lord of the manor also had the responsibility of maintaining law and order, dispensing justice extra, since there was a great deal of lawlessness in those days. Even free peasants were sometimes prepared to accept the vassalage of the lord of the manor in return of protection. So we have read that since there was a great deal of lawlessness in those days, even free peasants were sometimes prepared to accept the vassals matlab gulami of the lord of the manor in return of protection. Some historians think that the system of serfdom and the manor system are vital parts of feudalism. Again, I repeat, some historians think that the system of serfdom and the manor system are vital parts of feudalism, and that it is wrong to speak of feudalism for societies in which these two do not exist. In India, for instance, there was no serfdom and no manor system as such, but the local landed elements, samantas, samantas exercised many of the powers of the feudal lords, and the peasants was in a dependent position to them. In other words, what mattered was know whether the peasantry was formally free. In other words, what mattered was not whether the peasantry was formally free, but the manner and the extent in which it could exercise its freedom. In many countries of Western Europe, the manor system and the system of labor dues by the peasants disappeared after the 14th century. The second feature associated with feudal system in Europe is the system of military organization. Again, I repeat, the second feature associated with the feudal system in Europe is the system of military organization. The most typical symbol of feudal system was the armored knight or horseback. So, the second feature associated with this feudal system in Europe is the system of military organization. The most typical symbol of feudal system was the armored knight, means जो कवच वाले सूरवीर थे on the horseback, घुड़सवारी करते हुए. Actually, the system of cavalry warfare, घोड़ों की जो लड़ाइयाँ होती थी, can roughly be traced back in Europe only to the 8th century. In the Roman times, the chief wings of the army were the heavy and light infantry armed with long spears and short swords. मतलब उस टाइम पे क्या होता था, तीर वाला लॉन्ग स्पीयर्स, मतलब तीर और धनुष वगैरह वाली लड़ाइयाँ होती थी. हॉर्स वर यूज टू ड्रॉ चैरियट्स, मतलब रथ को चलाने के लिए घोड़े की का यूज़ होता था. इन विच द ऑफिसर्स रोड. It is generally believed that mode of warfare changed with the arrival of Arabs. The Arabs had a large supply of horses, and their swift movements and mounted archers made the infantry useless. So the Arab had a large supply of horses and their swift movements, मतलब तेज movement, and mounted archers, मतलब तीरंदाजी, मेड द इन्फेंट्री, मतलब जो पैदल सेना थी उसको यूजलेस बना दिया था. द प्रॉब्लम्स ऑफ डेवलपिंग एंड मेंटेनिंग द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन needed for a new mode of warfare helped in the growth of feudalism in Europe. No king could hope to maintain out of his own resources the large body of cavalry needed and to provide them with armor and equipment. Hence, the army was decentralized, assigning to fief holders and responsibility of maintaining a fixed force of cavalry and infantry for a service of the king. So, cavalry warfare became the principal mode of warfare on account of two inventions which, though much older, जबकि बहुत पुराने थे, begin to be used on a large scale during this period. The first was the iron stirrup. So, because चुप रही हूँ. Cavalry war became the principal mode of warfare on the account of two inventions which, though much older, began to be used on a large scale during this period. The first was the iron stirrup. Stirrup मतलब कुंडा, लोहे का कुंडा. The iron stirrup made possible for the heavily armed person to ride on a horse. Means जो अच्छे से कवच पहन के आया हो उसको भी घोड़े पे without falling off. It also made possible a cavalry charge with the lances held tightly to the body, without the rider being thrown off by the shock of the impact. The earlier device was either of wooden stirrup or a piece of rope which only provided a toy hold. Thus, it was now difficult for इन्फेंट्री टू फेस द चार्ज ऑफ हैवी कैवलरी. मतलब जो पैदल वाले सैनिक थे उनके लिए दिक्कत होने लगी. द सेकेंड इन्वेंशन वॉज अ न्यू टाइप ऑफ हार्नेस विच enabled a horse to draw twice the amount of load it pulled earlier. It is believed that both these inventions come to Europe from the east. यूरोप में ईस्ट से आया था, possibly from East Asia, and that they in spread in India from the 10th century. Thus, many factors, political, economical, and military, were responsible for the growth of feudalism in Europe. Even when strong government emerged after the 11th century, the traditions had become too strong for the king to easily reduce the power of feudal chiefs. Yes, I repeat, even when strong government emerged after 11th century, the traditions had become too strong for the king to easily reduce the power of feudal chiefs. Apart from the system of feudalism, the pattern of life in Europe during what is called the medieval period was also shaped by Christian church. Yes, apart from the system of feudalism, the pattern of life in Europe during what is called medieval period was also shaped by Christian church. We have already referred to the role of the Greek Orthodox Church in Byzantine Empire and in Europe. In the absence of powerful empire in the West, the Catholic Church took on some of the functions of the government as well. The Pope, who was the head of the Catholic Church, became not only a religious head but one who exercised a great deal of political and moral authority as well. For the medieval age in Europe, as in West Asia and India, was an age of religion, and those who spoke on behalf of the religion exercised a great deal of power and influence. With the help of grants of land from the princes and feudal chiefs and donations from rich merchants, many monastic orders and monasteries were set up. Some of these orders, such as that of Franciscans, served the needy and poor. Many monasteries gave medical help or shelters to the travelers. Sorry. Many monasteries gave medical help or shelters to the travelers. They also served as centers for education and learning. In this way, the Catholic Church played an important role in cultural life of Europe. However, some of the monasteries which become exceedingly wealthy began to behave like feudal lords. Yes, some of the monasteries which become exceedingly wealthy begin to behave like feudal lords. This lead to internal discord and conflict with the rulers who resented the worldly power of the church and of the popes. We shall study in the subsequent chapter how the conflict between the church and the state in Europe had an effect outside Europe as well. Thank you.